and this is the Gospel According to Chris, episode 14, I believe, and we're going to make sure that everything started properly, and it has. Oh, wow, that's so crazy.
Past couple a first here?
And today we're going to be talking some interesting stuff with our guest of honor who is down there. That is Pop Culture PB. Thank you very much, Pop Culture, Mr. PB. Thank you for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah. And today we're going to be talking about Star Wars and Marvel. We're going to do this a little differently. We're going to go over this really quick. We're going to do a two-part on this one. We're going to kind of try to keep it down to about an hour on the first part, and we'll see how the second part goes, because this is a very all-encompassing episode with a lot to talk about, I'm sure. So with that said, really quick, as you see next to me, we got Sean Stackhouse. We'll get to him here in just a second. But Mr. PB, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, what you're about, and all that fun stuff.
Yes, hello, everybody. I am PB, and you can find me at Pop Culture PB on YouTube and on Twitter. I do videos talking mostly about Marvel and Star Wars. There's a couple of Game of Thrones videos in there, too. And I also do High Council highlights. So if you've ever watched any of Geeks and Gamers or Ethan Van Sciver or Jeff from World Class Bullshitters, when they get together on Tuesdays and have their High Council streams, I take highlights from those streams and I add some pictures and some GIFs and some subtitles over the top to make it a little more funny than it would typically be just people talking. So if you like to laugh, go over and check it out.
So essentially, you steal a lot of your content.
Well, the last time I checked, it was about 60-40. I think there's 61 highlights, and I got like 105 videos total at the moment.
All right. I just want the audience to know that you're a dirty thief, man.
Listen to this.
Oh, man. Absolutely. I go and take people's words and I take them out of context entirely.
Yep.
And I throw them up on the internet with a picture of Captain Marvel beating the hell out of an old woman.
Oh, look at this. I mean, so in other words, you're just about as good as the current news media. You take words out of context, you mash them together and say what you wanted to say.
No, he's better. At least this media is entertaining.
Well, I don't do the mashing together.
Oh,
everything is always one solid piece. All of the rest of that is mostly true.
I do have to say, I enjoy your highlights, the High Council highlights. So you make, like you said, you do a really good job of making it kind of, you put that funny spin to things on that.
He's like the National Enquirer. Everything's fake except for one thing, and it's your job to pick out that one truth nugget.
This is a true story, but what part of it's true, you have to figure out. You should do a contest like that. Tell me what's real in this story.
Well, yeah, like I like the one highlight. It's a shorter one, and it's Jeremy was talking about Don Lemon, and he was like, well, Don Lemon told me today that Donald Trump killed a bunch of puppies. He's like, it's got to be the truth. Don Lemon told me. So I was like, oh, this has got to be a highlight. Absolutely.
Yes.
So the title of it was Donald Trump, Don Lemon, and Dead Puppies.
Wow.
That's lovely. Okay. So let's get into this. What do you want to talk about first? Star Wars, Marvel? Where do you want to start?
Well, I guess we could start with the king and start with Marvel.
Okay.
That's how I see it, at least currently.
Definitely.
It is the biggest movie of all time, and definitely the biggest movie franchise if we're talking about the money it's brought in of all time.
So let me ask you guys this. There's no questioning that Endgame was a bona fide smash hit. But do you think that Disney may have padded the ticket sales a little bit like they did on Captain Marvel? Or do you think they just let it do its own thing because it had legs?
I think that they probably padded the ticket sales a little bit in the sense of I don't know how it works with the promotional deals. Like when you go out and you buy some Dr. Pepper or a bag of Doritos and you got to get the 3 UPC codes to get your free ticket.
Yeah.
Are all of those tickets already paid for before
Yes.
the promotion started? So,
I'm
like, if we're
sure.
talking about padding sales, doing promotions like that, those pad the hell out of sales, and all of those, a lot of those, are pre-sales.
True. But also, I mean, you know, they really wanted to dethrone Avatar, so I can kind of see them maybe padding the books a little bit when they re-released it, even though it was technically already still in the theaters, so it didn't need to be re-released, but it was a re-release anyway.
Well, yeah, but that's
Talking
the thing.
underhanded tactics of the re-release.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to the Future did that.
Well, who did what?
Back to the Future did that. The first Back to the Future was quote unquote re-released, like I want to say 2 or 3 times throughout that year to a larger theater audience again. Because
but Back to the Future also has never tried to compete for the #1 movie.
no, but back then that wasn't the point. But by saying that it's underhanded because they re-released, it's not the first time they've done that. And the reason why they re-released it then was because
you're talking about a bona fide re-release, like it's out of theaters and all of a sudden it's back in months later. Endgame was
Right.
out of
even
theaters.
like that, though. I don't think
I mean, yeah, Avatar did a re-release. I feel like the real question is if Endgame would have been at, let's say, 2.2 billion, so it makes more money than Infinity War, but it's not going to come anywhere close to Avatar. Would they have still done the re-release then? I don't think they would have.
I don't think so either.
So yeah, I think the re-release itself was done so they could break the record, but they wouldn't have done the re-release if they would have already broken the record either.
No.
Like if they would have been over 2.798 or 2.9, I don't remember the exact number, but whatever it was, if they would have went over, they wouldn't have went, oh, well, we need to definitely do this re-release because people love a re-release and we got to give them this extra scene of the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Professor Hulk.
Yeah.
I mean,
Stevie J brings up a good point. It was more of an extended release because, like you said, Sean, it wasn't technically out of the theaters. So they just added some extra scenes and pushed it some more. So
right, yeah. There was, in reality, only some theaters it was a re-release because it was out of that individual theater and then it was back in. But like General Zod said, all of the theaters, wherever it was billed or it was scheduled as a re-release. Like that's what it said on the banner because it had the extra scene in it.
So, Chris, to clarify your wrong point, Back to the Future was first re-released in October of 2010, and then on October 21st, 2015, the entire trilogy was.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actually in '85 when it was first out.
Nope, it was not.
Actually, yeah, because I remember when they did it.
Find me proof.
Okay, well, we'll waste time on that some other time, and we'll talk about it then. Because I'm not wasting time on that today. So
when you guys have on somebody that wants to talk Back to the Future, which I'm sure you will, because they are out there, because it's a great movie.
It's the greatest
franchise. Then you will find that nugget.
Do you hear what he says? It's the greatest franchise.
I heard it's like the 4th or 5th time I heard him say it.
I don't disagree that it's one of, but
Nope.
but ask Sean. I don't go out and tell you who my favorite band is either. I have many favorite bands, and I do not list them in an order of 1 to 5. I just can't do that, and I couldn't put Back to the Future up against Star Wars or some of the Marvel movies. I wouldn't do it because I like them all, and I think I like them all equally. But Sean might have a point.
Like, I can tell you who my favorite band is, but for me to tell you who like 2 through 5 is, that would be tough.
Yeah.
Because my favorite band is Rush. That's easy.
See, Rush is good, and I'd say that they're up there for me, but they're just they wouldn't be number one if I came up with a number one, but they're great.
Oh, I totally understand everybody who's like, well, yeah, I like Rush, I like their music, but they're not number one. And a lot of those people, they go like Rolling Stones or Black Sabbath, or maybe newer stuff, maybe Nirvana. Like those are the people that they're gonna pick for their favorite band. And I was like, let me guess, you don't like it because you're not a huge fan of the way that Geddy Lee sings. And they're like, well, it's a little nasally for me.
I like Geddy Lee. I like their sound. It's awesome. They're tight. They're
oh yeah, and I'm a huge fan of bass guitar, and I've never seen anybody play a bass guitar like him.
No, Geddy's a beast on bass.
Yeah, they're one of the best live bands ever. I will say that.
And I never got to see them, and they were at Summerfest in Milwaukee, like 10 years ago, something like that, and I didn't go. I was like, oh no, I'll catch them next time they're there.
They're retired, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, they stopped touring like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. I'm not ruling out that they'll ever do another tour, but they might not. Some people stay true to what they say. Okay.
I wish I could get some Rush music into some MCU movies. I mean, they got AC/DC for an entire movie.
Yep.
Kiri says they used Back to the Future movies in film schools as examples how to do it right.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
But we're going to talk about Back to the Future some other point. Let's get back on topic here. We're talking Marvel right now. So PB,
the King franchise.
PB, who is or what is your favorite or what is the best MCU movie? And I'm going to say this kind of sarcastically, but to date, because I'm not sure that they'll ever hit anything like what they've hit before now.
Now, that's not necessarily the same question to pick a person's favorite compared to the best one. Because like with Star Wars, a lot of people say their favorite is Return of the Jedi, and those people will also say, well, maybe the best one is Empire, but my favorite is Return of the Jedi because of how Luke is in the movie. But my favorite MCU movie is Infinity War.
Okay.
Pretty easily.
And what is the best?
Because my favorite, the best one, I think the best one is probably Infinity War, but right below it is Winter Soldier.
That's a good one.
Yeah. That was definitely a good one.
With the story, because I was not expecting particular people to be Hydra agents.
No.
And I was like, holy shit, he been a bad guy the whole time? That's like watching Spider-Man and you're like, son of a bitch, he's a Skrull.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like Infinity War because Iron Man is my favorite Avenger.
Yeah, I mean, mine too.
I like
easily.
I like the fact that they, early on they went with Junior there, and Robert Downey was, perfect for that role, I think.
Yeah,
no, he was absolutely perfect.
Without Robert Downey Jr., I don't think it because I think they were talking about going with Tom Cruise because they didn't want to. No one wanted to insure Robert Downey Jr. at that point because of all of his past addiction and whatnot. So I'm sure that it would have been a perfectly fine movie with Tom Cruise as Tony Stark, but Robert Downey Jr., I mean, the personality of Tony Stark is really the persona that RDJ has always had.
Kind of. I mean, it's mellowed out in time, but he knew how to play that. So,
exactly.
Because when he was younger, that was absolutely 100% what he was like.
Yeah.
I mean,
for instance, Tom Cruise, he would have worked because you never really see Iron Man run that much.
If he had run, it would have taken him 10 years to get from one point to the next because his legs are so short.
Yeah, but Tom Cruise would have insisted on being put inside a real suit of iron that could fly.
Yeah, that's true. It'd have been like, did you guys build the Iron Man suit? Because I'm not doing it unless you have a real Iron Man suit.
You're like, what do you
They've
mean?
been like, okay.
Gotten into it and been like, hey, what these things don't work. Come on, what's the point of this?
I mean, the only other name that I heard floated as Tony Stark was Nicolas Cage.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. I had heard that one time too, and
and I was like, whoa. I was like, even the fact that he was Ghost Rider, forget that. I was like, not Nicolas Cage. Like, you don't have the right cadence for Iron Man.
Yeah, I mean, if Nick Cage pops up in the MCU anywhere, I see him more as a villain. I don't like.
Yeah,
I could see.
No, I could see that.
Yeah,
I love Face Off.
Oh yeah, me too. But I could see him. I don't know, maybe now. Since he's older, but if they would have gotten Fantastic Four back maybe 10 years ago, I could see him playing Doom, Dr. Doom, Victor Van Doom.
Okay.
So
that'd be interesting.
PB, let me get your opinion of the upcoming Phase 4 of Marvel, and I don't know, what are your concerns? I'm sure they're like a lot of us. And do you think there's any hope for this to come out with these movies and these series that they're planning? Do you think there's any hope that on the back end of it, we're going to come out of it going like, man, it looked bad, but it wasn't as bad, or, oh my God, they actually pulled this off without messing this up? Do you think there's any, what is it that you think about this Phase 4 coming up?
Well, on the front end of it, first movie, Black Widow, that's a movie that pretty much all of us, at least MCU fans, maybe not like Marvel comic book fans, MCU fans, been asking for that movie since like 2012, since the first Avengers. We've been like, what the hell happened in Budapest?
Exactly.
And all I want to know. I don't care what else happens if they tell me what happens in Budapest, or if they show me. I mean, you gotta show me.
I think this is going to happen around the time of the Winter Soldier.
Something like that. I heard something like that.
Okay.
Civil War.
So not a entire prequel like Captain Marvel was.
Right. No, this actually, I just saw a video about this the other day with upcoming movies of MCU, and what they're saying is going to take place after Civil War because she's on the run.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
And so they're going to fill in that gap, and they are going to talk about Budapest and some other stuff. So
maybe we'll get some flashbacks of Budapest. That might be interesting.
Yeah. So I mean,
flashback.
I think this is. Hopefully, it's not too little, too late. They got the right actor or actress, and as long as they stay true to everything they did before. But I think because it is supposed to be the kickoff of 4, isn't it?
Yes,
it's the first one out of the gate. Yeah.
Yeah. So
right, like the way I look at it is Spider-Man was like the epilogue of Phase 3.
Mm-hmm. And when you watch Spider-Man, it's like, okay, now I get why this is now Phase 3, because before they were pimping it out as being the first of Phase 4.
Right.
And now it went to the end of Phase 3, and I know a lot of us are going like, why? And when you watch it, you're like, okay, I get it, because it was kind of their. I looked at it as 2 parts. One, it was their way of handling Tony Stark's spoiler alert death, and 2, it was. I still view it, if this goes downhill quick, this was the way of saying to the MCU fans of the past 12 plus years, here you go, guys. This is what you get. From now on, we're doing it differently. And you're probably not going to like it. We know it. This is what we're giving you. Because,
I did like Spider-Man.
What?
I did like Spider-Man.
Oh, I did.
But I think this is their way of possibly, if it does go woke and if it does go downhill, that this was kind of their way of saying, we're killing your MCU, and this is how we're doing it.
Okay.
It's interesting. So if if they don't work out a deal with Sony, and I hope they don't, but if they don't work out a deal with Sony, I wonder how they're going to explain the absence of Spider-Man. They can't just pretend that he didn't exist.
Well,
I mean, they don't have to pretend that he doesn't exist, but they're just going to tell the story like they would. I mean, nobody pretended per se in Civil War that Thor didn't exist, but he isn't in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, that's true,
And he's one of the big three.
But yeah, that is true. But I mean, say we have another 10 years of the MCU, and no one ever mentions Spider-Man. He never shows up again. I mean, that's just a little weird.
I still say Disney's going to get it because Sony came out the day after everybody in the news was saying deal's dead, this is over, he's out. And they came out the very next day and just said, we're saddened that Feige is no longer going to be in charge of this property, blah, 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 blah. And then they said, we still hope to revisit this deal.
Well,
Sony knows that if they drop this, that their last reboot of this was a flop comparatively. And while you may have liked Tobey Maguire and liked his, the first two are what people liked. The third one was considered a crap.
They wouldn't have to reboot because Tom Holland is under contract with Sony, not with Marvel.
But then the new news said that Tom Holland said, but I don't know. I just still think
the thing is, I heard today is that Sony wants to do kind of a live action of Into the Spider-Verse with Tom Holland and Tobey Maguire and the guy from Andrew Garfield.
Garfield. And I'd be okay with that. I mean,
and if that's they want to merge the Spider-Verse and have all of like kind of a hodgepodge of everybody who's been in all of the movies come back together for like this big spider event. And I'd rather do that.
That would be interesting because they're going to have to do something big, because I assume if they just do a Spider-Man movie, because Venom did pretty well for being a movie, I guess, Spider-Verse movie, because it didn't have Spider-Man, but it's a Spider-Man character. Yeah. And it made $800 million something without having Spider-Man. And if they just pick a random freaking character and make a Spider-Man movie, Disney is going to do some underhanded tactics to be like, well, that's not the real Spider-Man. He's not from the MCU.
Well, you see, that's the thing. If you did that Into the Spider-Verse, you just had to be very careful. I think you could keep it where it was with the MCU, but just don't mention the MCU. And then that gives them time to figure it out with Disney. I still think Sony, Sony never could have gotten $1 billion Spider-Man movie.
No.
And Disney did that. And as much as we want to point blank call Disney out on all the crap they do, occasionally like this with the MCU so far, they get things right and they get them very right.
To a point, yes, but we're getting to the point where everything is feeling very manufactured and very Disneyfied. It's very cookie cutter like. And when the MCU started out as an independent studio, Marvel Studios, they weren't afraid to take risks. So I mean, I feel like we've seen like the furthest.
Yes, I agree with that. Like if you look at the first three characters and you look at Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, all three of those movies are very different from each other, and they're all in the same universe.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the same timeline for that matter.
Exactly.
The key for Disney, if they were to get Spider-Man and any other property like they've been doing with X-Men and stuff, the Marvel universe, if they continue the MCU with all these characters they're buying, the key to Disney is to do what they did as soon as they got a hold of the MCU, which is just basically, and since Kevin Feige probably is not going to be there for whatever time period, not that much longer, a little longer, whatever it is, They have to find somebody like Feige that will come in and say, here's my blueprint. This is what I want to do. And they just look at it and go like, looks good here. Because that's what they did originally. It was different with Star Wars. Because with Star Wars, there was no plan. They cut the guy out that had a plan. And then they said, okay, we're going to do what we want with this. And look at the difference of what's happened. One, they were in complete control of, and they were making the calls, and it's falling flat. The other one is way up here because they let the people who came up with the original ideas and were running the ship continue to sail that ship, even though the ownership of the ship changed. They didn't interfere with the MCU.
Yeah, they just need to be able to keep their diversity of movie in the sense of you need to be able to make your Ant-Man style movie, you need to be able to make your Winter Soldier style movie, and then your like Infinity War Endgame, like your big culmination style movies. If they can keep that range instead of everything starting to look like a Captain Marvel movie where it's like, well, here's just an action movie, it's in the MCU, go and see our movie, like that's going to get old real quick.
Yeah.
You see, and
I don't know any of, or I shouldn't say that, not any, I don't know a lot of the characters coming up. Like,
yeah,
we know Black Widow, but that's supposed to be like a prequel in the timeline per se. Like it's going back what, or something like that.
Something like that.
I don't know the Eternals. I've never seen. I don't really read the comic books. I don't know any of them. Like General Zod's all pissed off that the guy who's supposed to be the Oriental guy is Indian instead of like Chinese, because he's supposed to be Chinese so that he knows Kung Fu. And I was like, dude, Indians can learn martial arts.
Yeah,
get over yourself.
I'm not going to get over the ethnic background of a person. As my only concern with any movie, if they look apart, great, but it's more important, can they pull the part off? Can they act the part out? So when it comes down to this problem of, you know, an Indian playing a Chinese guy, or they're both Asian, okay, I mean, if you want to go full range, they're Asian, and that's where you really should say you're Asian, you're European, you're American, or from the Americas. That's about all you get.
See,
outside of that, leave it alone, because
I prefer them to stick to the source material whenever they can. Like, you know, with Iron Man 3, what they did with the Mandarin, that kind of ticked me off. And, you know, not because they weren't representing, you know, a nationality or what have you. It's because they weren't going with the source material. So
they took a back. They kind of just well, I don't know. Okay, I have a better word. They were dick tease with the Mandarin.
Yeah, they were.
Look, and you're like, oh yeah, and then all of a sudden, yeah, it's not him.
I love Trevor.
Well, yeah, he was funny. It was a funny part, but it was just, and he looked the part too. They did such a great job.
I know. See, and that for me, being one of these people that doesn't adhere to the comic books, because I had no idea who the Mandarin is. I was like, oh, he's the bad guy for this movie. I don't know who that is. It's not like Dr. Doom or something. It's not like, here's Dr. Doom and he's gold now. You're like, wait a second.
Well,
Dr. Doom ain't supposed to be gold.
I think, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but if I don't know anything about Marvel Comics and I hear the name Mandarin, I'm going to think Chinese, you know, because, you know, I like to eat Mandarin chicken.
So let me get back to Phase 4 real quick here. Here's my concern with Phase 4. Because we were talking about, they did a perfect job of separating these movies in the original 3 phases, separating them but keeping them in the same universe, and then occasionally bringing bits and pieces of it together for, like, you know, Civil War, The Winter Soldier, these different things where they would combine several aspects of singular movies together to keep, and like you were saying, PB, you know, different stylizations of what they're doing. That's all part of one big universe. Now, here's the thing I'm not sure about. I'm going to look at Black Widow more like part of the first 3 phases, because that's how it fits in. Going forward from there in phase 4, I'm not sure with this current setup that they're doing. For one, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to build up to a big movie or to a group movie that's going to be the same build up as it was with the other movies. Two, I hate that they're going to water down certain characters like Hawkeye and put them into episodic streaming.
Oh,
Well,
yep.
I don't think Hawkeye can be watered down more than he was already.
Saying that. What I'm saying is I don't need them to water down and put on in an episodic anything, because if he's not good enough for his own movie, which I don't think he is, I wasn't bad. I didn't mind the part. I think they're watering it down, and that's going to make it even harder to build up to something like, the Winter Soldier.
Well, I agree on some points, but I also disagree. I think for supporting characters like Hawkeye and Wanda, and even the Winter Soldier and the Falcon, this gives them more of an opportunity to kind of flesh out the character and give them more character development. So the next time you do see them on the big screen, there's going to be more to them. They're not going to be as two-dimensional or one.
Okay, hold on. What constitutes a supporting character? Because are we talking like the Avengers? Because the Avengers, like if the original movie, the Avengers is those 6. But inside of those 6, you have the big 3, because only 3 of them have their own trilogy.
Exactly.
So you know that those 3 are above the other 3, at least as far as their character arcs, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like not as far as importance. Like some of them been around longer than others. Like Black Widow been around longer than Thor.
Yeah.
In the movies.
I would. What I would say, as far as the MCU goes, the supporting character,
because like Wanda was in the Avengers at the end of Age of Ultron. She was in the team.
Yes, she was. They showed her, but I would say in the MCU, the supporting actors are anyone or any people who don't have their own films.
Okay. That's fair.
And
I get on board with that.
I think that giving these people their own shows on Disney Plus, it's going to give us more storyline with them, because they obviously haven't focused on them more in the movie for some reason. So this gives them their time to shine, and maybe something will work out with a character or two to where they can come out and say, because we saw how powerful Wanda was at the end of Endgame, where she was like ripping
one of the most powerful.
No, right, yeah. She was supposed to be in Age of Ultron, or at the end of Age of Ultron, the replacement for the Incredible Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. But yeah.
She, when you look at the team, she's supposed to be the quote muscle.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, you're talking about like the new lineup that Cap. Okay, gotcha.
Now you see, here's the thing. I'd be okay, like you said, with the Wanda and the split up into the series, Falcon, Winter Soldier. I'd be okay if what they're trying to do, and I think they might be trying to do this with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, is build up to a team movie, the 2 of them in a movie, but instead of hashing out their backstory or more about them, you're going to hash it out in the series. I'm okay with that. If that's what they're trying to do, fine. Let's not waste time in a movie doing this. Let's waste time in the series doing this. And if you follow it, you're going to come back and you're going to go to this movie. If they're building that up and that's how they plan to build up these movies, okay. But I still think that this is questionable, splitting all this up. And I understand there's secondary characters that are going to the Disney Plus. They're still keeping the main characters, if you can call Thor now a main character, because God knows what they're going to do with that movie.
Well, I mean, technically the main characters, I guess, Thor, and then Captain Marvel, Black Panther, and then whichever ones they're introducing on the individual basis, because after the Eternals, you got Shang-Chi, I have no idea who that is. Never heard of him before until they started talking about him.
Sounds delicious, though.
The Mandarin is actually one of the villains in Shang-Chi. In
Yep.
fact, in Iron Man 3, the background of his videos he was shooting has the 10 rings around him. That's the 10 rings that are involved in that's the 10 rings they're talking about in the Shang-Chi.
Right. So I think a lot of people are going to want to go and see that movie because apparently it's going to be the actual Mandarin
Yes, that's
revealed
right,
finally.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't the new Doctor Strange movie called Doctor Strange and the Ten Rings or something like that?
No, I thought his was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse or something.
Yeah, who?
Doctor Strange.
His
Doctor
coming
Strange
out because
the psychotic maddening multiverse. I don't remember. It's like
and it's supposed to have Scarlet Witch in it as a sub character, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So she's going to be what in her TV show? Is the TV show supposed to be prequel time as well?
That's the thing. I don't know. I
Supposed to
think
be
it's
her and Vision, or is that supposed to be an alternate timeline thing?
I don't know.
Multiverse of Madness, by the way, guys.
Okay.
But I mean, it's WandaVision. So if Vision is alive, or if you can say he was ever alive in the show, then it has to be a prequel because he's host.
I mean, Vision is alive as much as an elevator.
Right. And I mean, I suppose
put a hammer in an elevator, it still goes up. It's not worthy.
Well, I guess. But I mean, for Vision to be Vision, he would have to have the Mind Stone. And the stones are, back in history. So,
right.
But, speaking of these TV shows, I was listening or watching a video today, the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel according to Mark with a C, and he was reading an article about Captain the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And he said, basically, the storyline that they're focusing on is how America is going to react to a black Captain America.
Yeah.
And it's going to be all racially charged and whatnot.
What?
And he said the more likely realistic story would be a small pocket of black people would be like, they would be the ones not for this because they'd be like, you're selling out, you're working for the man and stuff like that,
Yeah.
But yeah, that supposedly
it's supposed to be hashing out what America is going to think of him being the new torch for the Captain America.
But that's just race baiting right there. I mean, they're clearly trying to race bait, and I think it's stupid. And I mean, that's Marvel really or Disney really tipping its hand.
It is. I guess my next question would be:
so, are there any besides what? It's Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel 2. That's all Phase 4.
Mhm.
No. It's Black Panther.
Or Black Panther 2.
Black Panther 2 is not going to be until Phase 5.
Yeah.
Oh,
or Phase 4.2. I don't know because
no, it's Phase 5.
Is it Phase 5?
In fact, they're not. From what I've heard, they're not.
Okay. Well, what is going to be the line of demarcation between Phase 4 and Phase 5? Because if the line of demarcation is, oh well, we finally got rid of the last member of the big three because we killed off Thor, and now we got Lady Thor, then they can go right ahead and fuck off.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know where we're going. That's the thing. Okay, so we know this.
I understand the line of demarcation. The first phase ends with the Avengers.
Mhm.
Second phase ends with Age of Ultron, another Avengers movie. And then phase 3 ends with Spider-Man because it's an epilogue playing off of Avengers Endgame. Like in the timeline, it takes place after it, but once you watch the movie, you understand why it's part of that phase, but it's definitely transitional.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at the at the rollout here for Phase 4,
'Cause
and
I know there's still 2 movies that they're like undecided about. So, you know,
Well, let me ask
cross
you
my
this
fingers for
before you go
Fantastic
through.
Four.
that's not going to be until Phase 5.
Yeah, well, just wait a minute before you read that, Sean. Let me ask you this, guys. We're not getting another Avengers movie yet
No,
in this phase. We know that. But who is in charge of the Avengers now?
Oh,
I would assume it would be Falcon,
Is it?
Captain
like,
America.
okay,
But he's not Captain
there's
America
no
yet.
facility.
Well,
Well,
yeah, there is no
I mean,
facility.
there's the other thing. I mean, where? I mean, I think that was one of the things that they
But
did
you
so well in the first 3 phases is you automatically you first up with Iron Man. They built up that Tony Stark was being groomed to be supposedly either the main consultant, like what eventually I guess I would look at Nick Fury being, or Black Widow. But they built it up, and he eventually was, of course, the main guy. But you saw all that happening in the movies. So who is it going to be here? Who are they going to pick? They got the Eternals coming up. Is it going to be one of them? Is that what they're saying?
I don't know.
Well,
They're not handling
mean,
this the same way.
The
So
thing is,
right.
Phase.
You say who's in charge of the Avengers? Who the fuck are the Avengers?
Well, I
that's the
think
other
that's what we're going to determine in Phase 4.
Are
Phase
we?
4. Well, I think so, because Phase 4 is very much kind of a rebuilding year, like you do with a baseball team or what have you, because we've got Black Widow.
We're spending less money on crappy people, and we're gonna ride this out for the next.
Well, because from what I've read and what I've heard, Phase 4, we're not going to have a big bad until Phase 5. And so, I mean, they're starting out with Black Widow on May 1st, and then we've got the Eternals, WandaVision,
So they're gonna
Loki, Hawkeye, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange, What If, and Thor, Love and Thunder. That's it.
Yeah, so they're going to basically do this backwards. Instead of automatically showing us the big guy right up front, they're going to do the middle stuff that they were doing in phase 2 with different people here and there, showing us these people, and then they're going to come in with phase 5 and start building the Avengers.
I think they're going back to the original formula of kind of establishing all of the people, because we're kind of starting over in a sense. So they're establishing a bunch of new characters.
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly what they're doing with Nick Fury being in space, other than everyone says, well, that means they're setting up whatever the name is for S.H.I.E.L.D. in space. And I was like, okay, well, that doesn't tell me who the Avengers are. Because last time we checked, it was in Endgame, Black Widow consulting with everybody through their little holographic projections out there in the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
It's Sword.
Sword, okay.
Yeah.
Sword and Shield. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
But
excellent.
That's the thing. I mean, like I said, in phase 1, they were building up the Avengers immediately because that was Tony Stark's job. And you remember the scene at the end of Incredible?
Yeah,
he walks up and he says to the general, "Hey, I got this team I'm building." All this stuff.
That was Nick Fury. Nick Fury approached.
Yes, but he sent.
Yeah, he sent
Stark too. But that's what I'm saying. They were building this up all the way there. So are we going to see something like that? I just find it weird that we're going with a bunch of different things here that don't feel like that's going to be the main person involved with the new thing. So are we going to see Captain Marvel? Are we going to see Captain Marvel at the end of the things?
Right. She would have to come back and care about Earth more than she cares about the rest of the planets, which from watching her in the movies and what she says, she obviously doesn't.
No.
There's a lot of other planets out there, and they didn't have the Avengers like you did. And I was like, well, okay, that's nice and fine and dandy, but the only guy that could kill all these people all over the galaxy with the snap of a finger was here. So what the hell were you doing? Having coffee?
They're kicking around the idea of having an all-females Avengers movie anyway, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Force.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Captain Marvel ended up being the leader of the Avengers, because I mean that's kind of That's how it felt to me, you know, when they were advertising the movie and all the press leading up to it, how they were kind of insinuating that she was going to be taking the reins from, you know, Robert Downey Jr. And I remember talking to Chris that you cannot have somebody like Brie Larson come in and fill Robert Downey Jr.'s shoes. She just does not have the persona. You know, she cannot do it.
And that's the next thing. If they do that, honest to God, I think the only character that you can pick, and PB, you're right, and Sean, you're right, is Captain Marvel. But one, Brie Larson's not an actress that can handle that. And two, they've developed the Captain Marvel character basically into somebody who doesn't care about Earth enough to be doing that. So two things. One, I think they need to get rid of Brie Larson. If you're going to make Captain Marvel somebody, figure out somebody else.
Good luck with that.
I know. But two, you're going to have to immediately start showing that she cares more about Earth than she's already shown she doesn't.
Three, teach Brie Larson to have a personality.
Okay, listen, if we're going to get two of the three, I think that's one you can get out because that's not going to happen. Listen to Meatloaf, Sean. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah, but
no, but if we're looking at the story and the characters that they built up in the story and how they have changed in the story, there's only one character that would reasonably take over for the Avengers as leader, and that's Black Panther. Because they finally made it to the point where they were like, okay, well, we're going to integrate with the rest of the world. We're not going to hide ourselves. And they had the big moment of the first snap or the beginning of the blip.
Mm-hmm.
And he is the only person that is at the same level, if not higher level, of technology of Iron Man. Like, he can slide right into that role.
Yeah.
He already has the clout, per se, inside of the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy who figured everything out in Civil War,
mm-hmm.
or one of them,
mm-hmm.
without help, per se,
mm-hmm.
you know, using his own sources.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Apparently my dogs don't like the idea of a cat taking over.
So here's a question Scorpio brought up. He says, surely I guess it's a point. He says, surely Hawkeye would technically still be a worldwide wanted man serial killer. Wouldn't he end up in jail in Japan?
I think the blip would take that right off of the question. I think once they got everything back, there'd be enough people, enough reasoning for why he was doing it, because he felt like he had to protect people. He was going after people who were notorious, I guess, bad and taking advantage of the situation. So I don't think so. Now, yes, was he ruthless? Was he not adhering to what you would say would be an Avengers way, or being he was more of a vigilante than, but still, I mean, I don't think that they would do anything to him.
He was ruthless in such a way that he slit the guy's throat with the sword and you didn't see any blood.
Mm-hmm.
Even when he was wiping his sword off on his arm.
I know, but I don't think that. I think that's a secondary thing.
Mm.
But then again, I'm still under the impression that they could have killed him in the scene that they killed Black Widow. I would have been fine. I mean, I like both characters, but of the two to the whole series, they should have kept Black Widow, because Black Widow would have been a perfect head of the Avengers, in my opinion.
I was up late the other night with insomnia, and I just happened to catch Blade on TV for the first time in forever.
I love it.
You know, I forgot how violent and graphically violent it was and what they would actually show. And that was back in the late 90s. So, you know, and Blade is part of the MCU now. So there was no chance that we're going to get a Blade nearly as good as the Wesley Snipes movie, as long as Disney is in control. They're not going to show that blood. They're not going to show the gore. They're not going to show the graphic.
I don't necessarily know if that's true, because here's the thing. Disney's done a lot of stuff that they don't put the Disney name on. I'd be fine if they made these Buena Vista movies, because at least then they'd be more willing to cross the line on things.
I don't know, man. I don't trust Bob Iger. I don't, because he said that they would keep Deadpool rated R, but Deadpool is a hard R. I mean, I see if they keep Deadpool, I mean, if they don't add him to the MCU and they keep him in the 24th or 20th Century Fox verse, he's going to probably be technically between a hard PG-13 and a light R. I just don't see Disney
doing that. That Ryan will not be a part of that. If you hear he's out, then you know where it's going.
Well, Ryan's never been offered Disney money either.
I still say he's not going to do it, because the whole reason why he did the Deadpool in the first place was because of what they did to Deadpool.
I understand, man. It just depends on how many zeros are at the end of the check.
But are they really going to put out that much money for Deadpool?
As popular as Deadpool seems to be,
again, fine.
But I mean,
how much money did they make off of Deadpool for that freaking PG-13 re-release?
Not a whole lot, but the thing is, they're not going to have to pay Ryan Reynolds the same amount for Deadpool 3 as they had to pay Robert Downey Jr. for Iron Man 3. So essentially, to get, even though it's Disney money, to get Ryan Reynolds on board, it's not going to be a drop in the bucket compared to what Robert Downey Jr. was getting, or even Chris Evans. He just doesn't have the clout.
Okay, guys, we're down to like about 8 more minutes here. Let's do some, because I want to cut this down to about an hour, and we're going to come back next Monday, and we're going to bring this back together. Might talk a little bit more Marvel. We might switch completely to Star Wars, but let's go with final thoughts on where the MCU is going, what your hope or fear is, or both, for the future of the MCU. PB, since you're our guest, go ahead and go first.
Well, for looking at the end of Phase 4, my hope is they do the entirety of the Lady Thor arc so that they can kill her off at the end and we get back to regular Thor. Because that's my fear, is that the line of demarcation going into Phase 5 is, okay, we got rid of the big three, now we can move forward with the characters that we have created from Disney. The ones that came, what were they before, Paramount? That's who Iron Man and Thor and Captain America released under originally before they moved over.
I think so.
So yeah, that's my hope and fear, is what they're going to do specifically with that movie, because everything in between is a whole bunch of stuff that I don't know. So for the most part, I trust them, because for me, they've only had the one misstep, and it wasn't as bad as everybody would tell you, and then that's Captain Marvel. It was just boring.
Exactly.
It wasn't constantly full of feminist propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
It's just boring. I was like, come on, man. You were supposed to make this at minimum at least fun like an Ant-Man movie. Or you could have made it dark like a Civil War movie.
But I felt that
that's still Disney.
I mean, I didn't think it was a bad movie. It's a popcorn flick. But they misstepped on 2 things. One, the actress couldn't hold the movie. And 2,
no, everything that didn't have her in it was the best scenes.
It was. And 2, I think they misstepped with the way they treated Fury. And I mean, but it wasn't a bad movie. I mean, Sean and I even said it. It's not. It's a low tier MCU movie.
I would rank it around Incredible Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's where I have it.
Probably my least favorite of the MCU movies.
And
but
I only like Incredible Hulk because I think Edward Norton does a good job as Bruce Banner.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't 2004 Ang Lee Hulk bad.
Correct.
It wasn't.
I don't mind that movie.
It wasn't Dolph Lundgren's Punisher movie bad. So I mean, it could have been much worse. Even though I hold that movie, near and dear to my heart because I grew up with it.
Which one?
The '89 Punisher with Dolph Lundgren.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean, they didn't even let him have the skull except for on like the end of his knife, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, PB?
No, that's pretty much the big thing, because everything in between, I would trust them for the most part to introduce new characters that I don't know anything about. Like I didn't know anything about Ant-Man. I love Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's because the guy who played him is from Kansas City.
Yep.
Everything about that.
Ah, okay,
Yeah, I mean, we'll just let you know that right up front.
that's fair.
That's why it was so good.
Yeah. All right, Sean.
I mean, what's Sean's fear or hope?
Phase 4?
Phase 4, I have no expectations, really. I expect, well, okay. I have no expectations, but I would not be surprised if it was a bunch of shit. I would be surprised if there were some really amazing moments, but it's just one of those let's wait and see type of things. I'm not going to rush out to see any of the movies, except for maybe Thor: Love and Thunder, because I want to see them actually get Thor correct, even if it's a female Thor, because Thor has never been Thor in these movies. But yeah, that's about it. I say go DC, go. It's your time. Let's do something.
Aha.
I see. I have still yet to see anything that says DC has their game plan. I mean, I would love to see DC.
I didn't say they did. I'm saying DC, let's go. You've got time.
It's their time. I'm a big DC fan too. I'm a Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. I'm all of that. I mean, but I like MCU. I've loved what they've done with these movies, and I think that's a problem. DC had it right in front of them. Just don't worry about competing against them, but take that map that the MCU did and steal it and say, here's what we got to do. Don't worry that people are going to say, hey, this looks really similar. Don't worry about it. Make your characters, do your thing. You don't have to shoot it the same way. DC has much more depth in their characters. Okay, so Sean jumped out because he has to go and do a pre-record for Mary and him.
Yep.
So that's why we're
sure. Yeah, that was the excuse. It wasn't because we were talking smack about DC.
No, who knows? Sean. But my hopes, my fears. One, I am fearful that they go too woke. But I'm with you, PB. I have not yet seen. I've seen the moments of it, but right when you think, oh great, here they go, like an end game. You thought there was that moment, and I was like, oh great, here we go. And then they just pulled the reins and pulled back and said, okay, no, we're not doing that. Then they went and did Spider-Man, and it didn't have much of anything like that. I thought Captain Marvel, here we go. And they didn't. They did hold that rein back. They gave enough of it that I think it placated the people who like that stuff, but they didn't kill off the vibe that Marvel's had. So I have some hope that they still know what they're doing. Black Widow is not going to be an issue. We all want that. It's going to be fine. Eternals is definitely a question mark because most of us, unless you're just a diehard comic book fan, most of us don't know enough about it. So it's kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy. The way I knew a little bit about it, that's how I was introduced more to the Guardians of the Galaxy, was through the movies, and I love it. So I think that the Eternals are going to be kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxies in this movie. I'll do what I can to catch the Disney Plus stuff, but that's going to be a secondary thing. I hope you're right. The Lady Thor thing, it didn't work out in the comic books. I hope that they go through the whole story arc and either kill her or dethrone her from that. I don't think they have to kill her, but if they make it more that she's just carrying them.
They ain't got to kill her off. It's not like they're going to get her pregnant with twins and kill her off.
No. But if they just make it to where, I mean, hell, even bring Chris Hemsworth in long enough to say, hey, you're going to do this for right now for me while I'm gone, or somebody, Valkyrie comes and gives it to her. Well, he would want you to do this because he would trust you to make the right decisions or whatever, and make the movie basically her just carrying the mantle for the time being. And maybe even at the end, have him come back and make him, boom, Thor again. I don't know. I mean, but if they just get this out of their system right now, is what I would hope for that. but at the end of phase 4, I hope we have some direction. I don't want this to be just a bunch of movies and different things going on with no direction, because like I said, at the end of phase 1, you saw exactly where they were going. You may not have seen the end of it, but you knew what you saw them building up. They introduced Thanos. They had all in the phase 1, so you knew what was going on. You knew where it was heading, and if they don't have that figured out by the end of phase 4, then there's some problems in the MCU, I think. So, well, with that, guys, we are going to call this part 1 done, and we're going to come back, reconvene next week at 7:30 Central Standard Time. And PB, you're going to be there, I hope.
Yeah,
and we'll have Sean here again too, and we'll probably continue some about the MCU, but we'll definitely get to Star Wars next time, because I know a lot of people are wanting to hear how stupid I sound, I guess, or want my explanations for what I say. Which I have my explanations. I have my proof. It's just it's not the exact same theory that everybody else has, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about that, especially with you, PB, because we banter back and forth about it, but that's how Star Wars was back when we were younger.
I know, that's half the fun of Star Wars.
It is. And I think it's really important to show people that have two differing opinions, but I know we're going to come together in certain things, for certain. I know that. So with that said, guys, we're not doing the Wheel of Names this week because PB will be back next week. So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Hey, Cyber, it's good to see you. But come back next week, and we're going to continue this with some Star Wars and stuff. PB, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Why don't you tell everybody again where they can find you and what you're about?
Oh, yeah, I am PB. You can find me at Pop Culture PB on YouTube and on Twitter. I do videos talking about Marvel and Star Wars, even though we didn't really talk about Star Wars tonight, and I do High Council highlights. So if you'd like to enjoy a laugh, go over there and check it out.
Yep. All right, guys. Take it easy, and everybody have a safe and happy day.
See you later.